Hello, I'm Sarah Viscarando and I teach ballet and etiquette. I've just introduced myself to you because this is the class about introductions. An introduction is what you say when you meet a new person. And an introduction usually has three parts. You've got your greeting. I said hello, but you can choose another one. That's appropriate. Your name, which obviously you're introducing yourself. And something about you. This thing about you is often something that's about a little bit what you're doing where you are. For example, I could tell you that I'm a dog owner, but that's not really relevant to us having our etiquette class, right? I said, hello, my greeting. My name is Sarah Viscarando, my name, and I teach ballet and etiquette, something that's appropriate to us, that's about me. Often this topic is also a bit of a conversation starter. That's something that I want you to remember when we start introducing two people to each other. But first I want to talk to you about what's actually the most important part of your introduction. And that's something that you're not doing with your words. It's something you're doing with your eyes. When you look someone in the eye, give them what's called eye contact. Eye contact is part of what lets a person know that you're speaking to them, that you're giving them your time, you're giving them your attention. It matters very much. You see, if I were to look away while I was introducing myself to you, I'll show you. Hello, I'm Sarah Viscarando and I teach ballet and etiquette. Well, you have a lot of reason to believe that I wasn't speaking to you at all. Also, all of the things that you could think just because I looked away. You could think, what's on the floor? Is she reading off of a piece of paper? Is someone else telling her what to say? Does she even mean what she says? I just fell down the silliest little wormhole right there. Silly ideas that I had, just because eye contact wasn't present. If you look someone in the eye, you're showing them that you have the ability to acknowledge and respect them. And when you respect someone, you're respecting two people, both you and them. Because you see, you can't give respect without having it as well. It's a beautiful loop. It's just like love. Once you give it, it doubles. So, now that we've got an introduction to one person covered, I want to talk to you about introducing two people to each other. Because a magic thing happens when you introduce two people to each other. You see, those two people, they've had a conversation facilitated. It's a big word that means you set it up for them. The idea when you introduce two people to each other, first, is that they don't know each other's names. So I'm going to use two people, I'm going to use two puppets as an example. Let's imagine that you know these two puppets. You know Peter and you know Paul. And you need to introduce them to each other. Well, they don't know each other. So you want to say their names as many times as you can get away with. Because usually people don't really know another person's name until they've heard it said, 4 or 5 times. So, you say, Peter, meet Paul. Paul, meet Peter. You two are both puppets. Get it? Now, did you notice I said one person's name and then the other, and then I repeated myself backwards, this person's name and then the other, and then I just came up with something that I obviously see is true for both of them. You don't have to be clever with the topic of conversation that you give them to get them started. It doesn't have to be special. It can be completely obvious, right? It could be like, you both go to junior high together. You both know the same me. It can really be silly. The big point here is that you're giving two people a way to talk to each other. And the more you put into this, the more comforted the people that you're introducing to each other will feel. And that's wonderful. It's a great thing. Ultimately, what you're doing there is you're leading. And when you lead, even if it's by these small measures, it helps everyone, yourself included. I want to remind you of the way that I introduced one to the other. Think of it like a wave. That's what my etiquette teacher taught me, and I always use that. It's a good thought in your mind, helps you remember. The wave comes from the sea onto the beach, and then it has to go back out to the sea. So you say, Peter, meet Paul. Paul, meet Peter. You are both from Ballet Stories. So, the first rule of introductions, now that you've been taught how to introduce, is that when two are like in age and gender, they follow the rule of peerage. That means it doesn't matter whose name you say first. Peter meet Paul, Paul meet Peter, or Paul meet Peter, Peter meet Paul. It doesn't matter. Peerage means it doesn't matter. The second rule is the rule of gender. Now, you've heard ladies first before. That's true with gender as well. You would say, Janie meet Jack, Jack meet Janie. You two both like blue clothes, for example. Now, when you're introducing someone to a person who does not follow gender binaries, the person who doesn't follow gender binaries traditionally shares the way that they would like to be introduced or what pronoun they would like used. And in those cases, you would not follow the rule of gender, because in the rule of gender, gender comes first. Instead, if someone isn't following gender binaries, the rule of peerage comes first. So, again, we've got 2 of the 4 rules of introduction covered. The first one, the easiest, that's peerage. Same age, same gender, doesn't matter whose name you say first. The second rule, rule of gender. If there's a girl, you say her name first. Janie meet Jack, Jack meet Janie. You two both like the color blue. If one of the people that you're introducing to the other doesn't follow gender binaries, then you'll either follow the rule of peerage or you'll follow the rule of seniority. Now, I want to give you an aside. When I teach young children, it's a tradition not to say that your name is Miss and then use your last name. So my name is Sarah Viscarando. When I teach etiquette, I go by Sarah V. And when I teach ballet, I usually teach to preschoolers and I go by Miss Sarah. And I do that because it's the tradition in the preschools. This is organized for preschoolers to feel comfortable and to have, they already understand who has the seniority in the room because they're tiny and we're giant. But when it comes to older children, you establish seniority by following formality. And the formality is Miss or Mrs. and the last name. Since my last name is Viscarando, I go by Miss V because my name's a mouthful. So that is an establishment of seniority. And what seniority means is just who's oldest. Now, with seniority, you're also saying some other things. For example, let's imagine that the 2 people you're introducing to each other do different things. Let's imagine that they're both 18, but one teaches children and the other one hunts alligators. Seniority may go to the person who does the thing that's more important. That's how we get into our next rule. But before I go that far, imperfect little me is going to go back to rule number 3 and repeat it. Now, in the rule of seniority, the older person is named first. You say, hello, Mr. Jack. This is John. John, meet Mr. Jack. You guys both spend time at the high school because he works there and he goes there, for example. So when you have 2 people of the same age and the same gender, doesn't matter whose name you say first. When you have a boy and a girl, you say the girl's names first. When you have people of different ages, you say the name of the older person first. And then we have the topic of the VIP, which I was implying earlier. VIP stands for very important person. Let's use this character as an example because in the story of Swan Lake, she's the queen. So when you have a VIP or a very important person, let's imagine the principal of your school, right? The principal's name goes first. Hello, Principal Victor. This is Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns, this is Principal Victor. You two both work in education. Now, I gave you a kind of complicated topic for the 2 of them to discuss, but you would know what to say if you knew both people. You two have a lot in common because you both work at schools, for example. So let's go over all 4 rules of introduction one last time. And I bet you'll be able to tell me what the rules are as I show you the puppets. Ready? Here we go. If you've got two people of similar age and similar gender, it does not matter who you introduce first. If you're introducing a boy to a girl, you introduce the girl first. If you're introducing someone younger to someone older, you introduce the older person first. And if you're introducing someone who is a VIP to anyone else, the VIP's name goes first. Well done, dancers. Oh, well done, Manner Squad. That might be what I call you. All right, love bunnies, this has been the rules of introduction. We've covered how to introduce yourself and how to introduce people to each other. And we've also addressed eye contact. Remember, the moral compass of all etiquette, that's the heart of all etiquette, is kindness, consideration for others, and common sense. I see you again for conversation starting.